Hello everyone. Today we are dealing with a new chapter in second PUC, that is organisms and population. And this is the first chapter in the fifth unit of second PUC. The fifth unit is ecology. Okay, now let me continue. What is mean by ecology? Logos means study. Ecology means study of ecosystem or the study of environment. According to the definition, ecology is a subject which studies the interactions among the organisms and between the organism and its physical or abiotic environment. So ecology is a subject that deals with the interaction among the organisms. Among the organisms means between the individuals. It may be between the individuals of same species, or it may be the interaction between the individuals of different species, or it may be the interaction between the individuals of different kingdoms. So this kind of interaction is studied under ecology, and between the organism and its physical or abiotic environment. So it is the interaction between the biotic factor, means organisms, and the abiotic factors, means physical environment. So all such interactions are studied under the subject called as ecology. So this is the definition. Now, the different levels of biological organization. The levels of biological organization mainly includes the first one, that is organismic level, and is followed by population level, and then community level, and finally biome level. So these are the different biological organization in ecology. You know, the living organisms in biology, the living organisms are classified into different levels based on their biological organization. It starts from the molecular level, followed by the cellular level, tissue level, organ system level. So these are the various levels of organization. But here in ecology, there are different levels of biological organization. First one is organismic level. This is a very basic one, and is followed by the higher version, that is the population level, and the next level, higher level, that is the community level, and the largest one is biome levels. Now, what are the reasons for the development of various biomes in the earth? The reasons for the formation of major biomes. The first reason, there is a rotation of our planet, that is the earth, around the sun, and the tilt of its axis cause annual variations in the intensity and the duration of temperature, resulting in distinct seasons. So this is the first reason. In simple words, the movement of the earth. You know, the earth is rotating in its own axis, and it is revolving around the sun. The rotation of planet around the sun and tilt of its axis cause annual variation. So this kind of movement of the earth causes annual variation. Annual variation means variation in the seasons, variation in the intensity of light, variation in the temperature. So this kind of changes, variations in the intensity and the duration of temperature especially, resulting in different seasons, the development of distinct seasons. So this is one reason for the development of biome. The another one, so these variations along with the annual variations in precipitation. Precipitation means raining. In simple words, raining. It also includes the snowfall. So the rain as well as snowfall together known as precipitation. So the movement of the earth resulting in variation in the intensity and the duration of temperature, which is resulting in the development of various seasons. And these variations, along with the annual variations in precipitation, account for the formation of major biomes such as desert, rainforest, tundra, etc. So these are the two major causes, two major reasons for the development of various biomes in the earth. Now, let us see the diagrammatic representation of biome distribution in the earth. So this is a biome distribution with respect to the annual temperature and precipitation. So in this diagrammatic representation, you can see the desert, grassland biome, tropical forest biome, temperature forest biome, coniferous forest, Arctic and alpine tundra. So these are the various types of biomes developed in the earth because of the movement of the earth, variation in the intensity of temperature, variation in the seasons, variation in the rate of precipitation or the precipitation. So this is about the development of biomes. Now, the reasons for the development of varieties of habitats in each biome. As I told earlier, biome is the largest component. That is the highest level of biological organization in ecology. In each biome, again we can see the different types of habitats. So what are the causes? What are the reasons for the development of different habitats in each biome? That is mainly because of regional and local variations within each biome lead to the formation of wide variety of habitats. So in a particular biome, again there is no uniformity in the precipitation. Again, there is no uniformity in the chemical composition of the soil, or if there is no chance for the uniformity in the temperature. So there are many differences. The local variations, regional and local variations are found within a biome. So that leads to the formation of wide varieties of habitats. On planet Earth, the life exists not just in a few favorable habitats, but even in the extreme and harsh habitats such as scorching Rajasthan desert, rain-soaked Meghalaya forest, deep ocean trenches, torrential streams, the permafrost, that is the snow-laden areas, the polar regions, high mountain tops, thermal springs, and even the stinking compost pits are some of the extreme habitats or the harsh habitats. And we should remember the organisms are even found in these type of extreme habitats. Even our intestine is a unique habitat for hundreds of species of the microbes. See, within body, several hundreds of microorganisms are found. So that means the organisms are distributed in different conditions. Organisms are found in different regions on this earth, so they found in different habitats. So this is regarding the distribution of organisms. Now, let us see some of the very important key elements that lead to so much variation in the physical and chemical conditions of different habitats. So what are the reasons for variation in the chemical as well as physical condition? What is mean by physical condition? It may be related to the temperature, or it may be related to the pressure. So such kind of physical properties or the size of the soil particle, that is another physical property. And the chemical condition mainly the salinity or the pH, chemical composition. So these shows great diversity or the variation. So what are the reasons for these variations in the physical and chemical conditions of different habitats? And such kind of reasons are considered as the key elements. Now let me explain the different types of key elements. The most important ones are temperature, followed by water, and light, and finally the soil. So these are the four important abiotic factors, abiotic key elements that determines variation in the physical and chemical conditions of different biomes or the different habitats. At the same time, the physico-chemical, that is the abiotic components alone, do not characterize the habitat of an organism completely. So not only the abiotic factors such as water, light, soil, temperature, even some other elements, some other key elements also plays a vital role in the development of a different type of habitats. And the habitat includes biotic components, for example, the pathogens, parasites, predators, competitors found in a particular area also determines the physical and chemical conditions of different habitats. So the physico-chemical or abiotic components alone do not characterize the habitat of an organism completely. The habitat includes biotic components also, like pathogens, parasites, predators, and competitors of the organism with which they interact constantly. The type of pathogen determines the host organism. The type of parasites decides the type of host organism. The type of predator that decides or determines the type of prey species found in that habitat. The competitors that decides the type of symbiotic organisms or competing organisms in a particular area or in the habitat. So these are the very important key elements. Now, over a period of time, the organism had through natural selection evolved adaptations to optimize its survival and reproduction in its habitat. So we should remember all these abiotic factors are not constant. All these biotic factors are also not constant. They shows great variation. So when there is a variation in these abiotic and biotic factors, that means there is a variation in the condition. There is a variation in the condition, climatic conditions. So in such changed environmental condition, the residing organism has to show certain kinds of adaptations if it wants to survive in such a changed environmental conditions. So they shows adaptations. They evolved, and such organisms with the positive variations were selected by the nature, and that is called as natural selection. So these are the very important points regarding the key elements that determines the physical and chemical conditions of different habitats. Now, one of the very important terms. So this is called as niche. In Indian English, it is called as niche or niche. It is also called as niche. So what is meant by niche? Each organism has an invariably defined range of conditions that it can tolerate, diversity in the resources it utilizes, and a distinct functional role in the ecological system. All these together comprise its niche. So each organism has an invariably defined range of conditions. So it can tolerate one particular range of temperature. It can tolerate one particular range of pH variation. So it can utilize the resources, natural resources to a certain extent. And they shows a particular role in the environment. It has got its own role in the environment. So such an ecological system or such kind of activities, such kind of organisms, and such kind of conditions are together known as niche. In simple words, niche or niche is nothing but habitat. In simple words, we can assume it as a habitat. Now, the next very important topic in this particular chapter, that is regarding the major abiotic factors. As I mentioned earlier, the very important major abiotic factors includes temperature, water, light, as well as soil. So these are very important abiotic factors which determines the type of habitat, the physical and chemical properties of the habitats. Now, let me explain the major abiotic factors. See, the major abiotic factors that determine the biome are temperature, the first one, followed by water, and then light, and finally the soil. Now, let me explain one by one. The first one is temperature. Then, what is the importance of temperature in determining the different habitats? See, the temperature is most important ecologically relevant environmental factor. Now, temperature, it may be high temperature or the low temperature. But we should remember most of the organisms, almost all the organisms, they prefer one particular temperature, and the particular range of temperature which is required for the survival of an organism is commonly known as optimum temperature. So we can call it as optimum temperature. The average temperature on land varies seasonally. As I mentioned earlier, the temperature is not uniform. It is not uniform throughout the year. It is not uniform throughout the day. It is not uniform all over the world or all over the earth. So it shows great variation. So the average temperature on land varies seasonally, decreases progressively from the equator towards the poles and from plains to the mountain top. If you consider the earth, the temperature is very high at the equatorial plane. And when you move towards the polar region, the temperature decreases. There is a decrease in the temperature. At the same time, when the temperature is found, the temperature is very less or average in the plains. But if you move, if you climb the mountain, if you move towards the top of the hill, the temperature decreases. So there is a great diversity, variation in the temperature in our surface. And it ranges from sub-zero levels in polar areas. See, the temperature is sub-zero level, found in sub-zero level in polar areas, and at high altitudes to more than 50 degrees Celsius in tropical deserts in summer. See, great diversity in the temperature, great variation in the temperature. So that is more than 50 degrees Celsius in tropical deserts in summer. And there are, however, unique habitats such as thermal springs and deep sea hydrothermal vents where average temperature is exceeding 100 degrees Celsius. So that is more than exceeding 100 degrees Celsius. With respect to the temperature variation, we can see variation in the habitat or variation in the distribution of vegetation. See, there is a great diversity in plant species, great diversity in animal species, and this diversity in the vegetation, diversity in the animal distribution decided by the environmental factors, the habitat condition. Some examples are given here. Mango trees do not and cannot grow in temperate countries like Canada and Germany. See, the temperature is very less. You know, the mango is a tree. Secondary growth must occur in the mango tree. But in the colder climates, in the cold condition, the secondary growth or growth is reduced. Growth is very less in the winter season. But here always throughout the year, the temperature is very less. So such kind of trees cannot found in Canada and Germany. Snow leopards are not found in Kerala forest. Snow leopards, no chance. They will not survive in the Kerala forest. And tuna fish are rarely caught beyond the tropical latitudes in the ocean. So even in the oceanic ecosystem, there is a great diversity in the distribution of aquatic animals. Even in the ocean ecosystem, the distribution of animals, aquatic animals, decided by the temperature. And the significance of temperature to living organisms is that it affects the kinetics of enzymes and through it the metabolic activity and other physiological functions of the organism. So temperature has direct effect, direct influence on the organismal life. You know, our body is controlled by the various types of enzymes. Body means the body physiological activities, particularly the biochemical reactions under the control of enzymes. And the enzymes are highly sensitive to temperature variation. They need optimum temperature. When there is an increased temperature, the people will die because of high temperature. The reason is the high temperature causes degeneration, destruction of enzyme. Even people will die because of cold temperature. That is because of the inactivation of enzyme. See, the increased temperature causes destruction of enzyme. The low temperature causes inactivation enzyme, and both leads to the death of the individual. So the significance of temperature to living organism is that it affects the kinetics of enzymes, and through it the metabolic activity and the other physiological functions of the organism. And they can classify the organisms based on their capacity to resist the temperature variation or ability to adapt to the varied temperature conditions. A few organisms can tolerate and thrive in a wide range of temperature. Few organisms can tolerate and thrive, can survive in a wide range of temperature variation. And such organisms are called as eurythermal. They can survive in the fluctuation conditions, in the temperature fluctuation condition also. But a vast majority of them are restricted to a narrow range of temperature. They cannot survive for a longer duration if there is a great variation in the temperature. So they are restricted. They are restricted to narrow range of temperature variation. And such kind of organisms are called as stenothermal organisms. They are called as stenothermal organisms. The levels of thermal tolerance of different species determine to a large extent their geographical distribution. So this was I told at the beginning. The thermal tolerance, capacity of the organism to tolerate the variation in the temperature, their capacity to withstand the temperature variation, their ability to adapt to the varied temperature conditions. These properties of the organism decides their distribution. To the large extent, their geographical distribution is decided by their capacity or their tolerance to the different levels of thermal conditions. So this is regarding the temperature as an abiotic factor in determining the physical and chemical properties of an habitat, or their importance in the development of different habitats in the bio. Now the second important factor, abiotic factor, that is water. You know the importance of water. Water is called as liquid of life. We cannot survive without water. Not only we, no organism is able to survive without water. That's why the water is called as liquid of life. Water is the another most important factor influencing the life of the organism. How? In fact, life on earth originated in water and is unsustainable without water. Its availability is also limited in deserts, and that only special adaptations make it possible for organisms to live there. That means the distribution or the availability of water is not uniform again in the earth. Just like temperature variation, even there is a variation in the distribution of water, especially the potable water, the water which is suitable to drink. So its availability is very much limited in case of deserts. So the plants with only the xeric adaptations can survive in the deserts. The productivity and the distribution of plants is also heavily dependent on water. You know the importance of water. Water is the very important requirement during the photosynthesis. Productivity is decided by the photosynthetic nature. Water acts as a source of electrons, source of protons during the photosynthetic reaction. Water is required for the various kinds of metabolic activities. It activates enzymes. It acts as a reagent, maintains body temperature, helps as a medium for the translocation purpose. So it plays a vital role in the life of a plant, not only in the life of a plant, in all the living organisms. Particularly in case of plants, the productivity and the distribution of plants is definitely depending on the availability of water. Then what about the aquatic organisms? Definitely the plants surviving or the animals or organisms surviving in the terrestrial condition, definitely they will face certain problems related to water, scarcity of water, unavailability of potable water. So such kind of problems will be faced. Definitely that will be faced by the terrestrial organisms. Then what about the aquatic species? Aquatic organism means they found in water. They found in water. If there is a water, definitely some organisms will be there. Whether they faces any kind of problems, definitely yes. For aquatic organisms, the quality of the water becomes important. Quality in the sense chemical composition, pH, particularly the salinity, the salt concentration, that is salinity, measured as salinity in parts per thousand. It is less than 5 in inland water. It is about 30 to 35 ppt in sea, and it is more than 1000 in some hypersaline lagoons. See, there is a great variation in the salt concentration. All the organisms are not able to survive in the water with the different salinity, so they need to show certain kinds of modifications. Some organisms are tolerant of wide range of salinities, but others are restricted to narrow range. The organisms which can tolerate a wide range of salinity variation are called as euryhaline, and those organisms which are restricted to a narrow range of salinity are called as stenohaline. So these are the two types of organisms based on their resistance or tolerance to the salinity variation. Many freshwater animals cannot live for long in a seawater because of this salinity problem, and vice versa, because the osmotic problems. Because of the osmotic problems, there is osmotic problem means water balancing, osmoregulation, water balancing. So that is decided by the salt concentration. That is decided by the salinity. So the organisms which can live in fresh water cannot survive in the sea water, that is saline water. And it is vice versa also. So that's why water definitely required by the organism. Even the quality as well as availability of water decides the distribution of organism, decides the vegetation, decides the animal species, and associated with the distribution of other organisms. The next important factor that determines the distribution of habitats among in the biome, that is light. Light is a source of energy. We have studied about the photosynthesis in first PUC. Photo means light, synthesis of organic food in the presence of light. And you know, the source of energy in the earth or the source of energy is light. For photosynthesis, it is a source of energy, and many species of small plants, herbs and shrubs growing in forest are adapted to photosynthesize optimally under very low light conditions because they are constantly overshadowed by tall canopied trees. So the distribution of light is also not uniform, especially in the thick forest. The tall trees will get enough light, but the small size plants which are growing below the large size trees, they will not get enough light. They need to adapt to such a dark condition or less light condition, or that is called overshadowed by the plants, overshadowed condition. So many plants are also dependent on sunlight to meet their photoperiodic requirement for flowering. So light is not only required for the photosynthetic reaction, that is also required for various other morphological or the physiological changes in the plant body. The hormonal regulation is affected by, influenced by the light, you know, the phototropism. Even the flowering process is also influenced by the light. Normally in most of the plants, the flowers will open during early morning. In some plants, they will open during evening time, 4 o'clock plant, for example. And some plants, they will open during night hours. So the presence or absence of light, that is important. Presence or absence of light, that decides the life of the plant. For many animals too, light is important in that they use the diurnal and seasonal variations in light intensity and duration, that is called as photoperiod, as cues for timing their foraging, reproductive and migratory activities. Some animals are more active in the presence of light and some animals are more active during night hour. They will catch or they will hunt the other organisms, or they will catch their prey species in the absence of light in some species, and some animals they will kill the prey species or they will hunt during the daytime. Even for the reproductive process, some prefer the presence of light, some prefer the absence of light. And even the migratory activities of the animals is also decided by the light. The availability of light on land is closely linked with that of temperature, since the sun is the source of light as well as temperature. So when the light intensity is very high, normally temperature is also very high. If the light intensity is very less, temperature is also less. That's why during the daytime, normally the temperature is very high. And during night hours, the temperature decreases. But in the deep oceans, that is more than 500-meter depth, the environment is dark and its inhabitants are not aware of the existence of a celestial source of energy called the sun. So in the deep ocean, there is no availability of sunlight. In such case, they shows chemosynthetic type of autotropism or the food preparation mechanism. So there are two types, photosynthetic as well as chemosynthetic. And the organisms found in such condition, they are adapted to such environmental factors. And the spectral quality of the solar radiation is also very important for life. Spectral quality means the composition of the light. You know, the visible light is made up of 7 colors. The spectral quality also decides the distribution of life on Earth. The UV component of the spectrum is harmful to many organisms, while not all the color components of visible spectrum are available for marine plants living at the different depths of the ocean. And all the radiations or all the colors found, or the spectra, they are called spectra, found in the light are not required by the plants for photosynthetic reaction also. I think you remember about the action spectrum, absorption spectrum. Especially the blue and red lights are called as action spectrum required for the photosynthetic reaction. Now the last very important factor, that is the soil. What is soil? Soil is nothing but the outermost layer of the earth crust which support life. That is important. The nature and the properties of the soil in different places vary. Again, this also shows variation. The quality of the soil, fertility of the soil, water holding capacity of the soil is not uniform throughout the earth. Even that is not uniform in a particular area, so in a particular places. As you move downwards, there is a decrease in the fertility. Normally at the top level, the fertility is very high. The nature and the properties of the soil in different places vary. It is dependent on the climate. It is depending on the weathering process, whether the soil is transported or sedimentary, and how the soil development occurs. So all these factors determines the soil nature or the properties of the soil. Various characteristics of the soil, such as soil composition, chemical composition found in the soil, organic as well as inorganic composition, grain size of the particle, aggregation, whether they are found very closely or whether they are free, just like a sand, very loose. The aggregation is very less. So that also determines the percolation of water as well as water holding capacity of the soil. So these are the important factors that determines the water holding capacity, soil composition, grain size, the aggregation of the soil particles. It determines the percolation as well as water holding capacity. These characteristic features along with the parameters such as the pH, mineral composition, particularly essential elements. I think you remember again 17 essential elements. The mineral composition and the topography determine a large extent the vegetation in an area. Topography, the distribution of soil layers, that determines the vegetation found in a particular area. So soil property, soil fertility, water holding capacity, availability of light, availability of temperature, availability of water, all such factors that determines the distribution of vegetation. This is in turn dictates the type of animals that can be supported. So the distribution of plants decides the distribution of animals, because animals are depending on plants for food. Even the plants are also depending on the animals for various purposes, particularly for the pollination process, but is secondary. So the food is first. So plants will provide food to the animals. So the availability of food, availability of distribution of vegetation decides the distribution of animals. Similarly, in the aquatic environment, the sediment characteristics. Sediment characteristics means the chemical composition which are accumulated in the ocean often determine the type of benthic animals that can thrive there. The type of aquatic animals decided by the chemical composition which are leached, or the soil composition which are leached from the land to the aquatic ecosystem. So this is regarding some of the very important topics covered in this particular chapter. Particularly, I told about the abiotic factors, the very important question. You should remember these points. So the remaining topics will be covered in the next video. Thank you.